Good morning. My name is Helen Foss, and I have the pleasure of welcoming you as today's worship associate. Welcome to First Unitarian Church of Wilmington, Delaware. Welcome to all of you who are present here in the sanctuary, and welcome to those of you who are joining us online this morning. Our COVID protocol has allowed us to relax the mask mandate in the sanctuary today, and we are actually gathering for fellowship time with refreshments following today's service in the tent in the field behind the sanctuary. Everyone is invited to join us. Yes, definitely. Welcome to you all, no matter the hue of your skin or the origin of your ethnicity. Welcome whomever you love and wherever you are on your spiritual journey. You are welcome here. If you're new to First Unitarian, I invite you to check out our website, firstuuwilm.org, to learn more about us and to sign up for our email newsletter, which will come to you every Friday in your inbox. This morning, I have special announcement about this afternoon's organ concert. I hope you've all been paying attention to this and are planning to come. It's at 3 o'clock. This will be the first big musical event we've had since COVID-19 put a halt to these things. David Shalat will perform in an organ concert on our Rieger organ. Anyone who is new may not really quite understand how famous our organ is. It was the first modern tracker organ in Delaware, and after its installation, organists came from far and wide to perform on this magnificent instrument. This afternoon, David Shalat, one of Delaware's finest organists, will pull out all the stops as he shows what our organ can do, and we can get to see his hands dance across the keys and his feet dance on the pedals. And evidently, we're moving some chairs around so there'll be better visibility. So please come, 3 o'clock this afternoon, celebrate this magnificent instrument with us. Also, Becky Laster needs just 2 people to commit to writing just 20 postcards this week, and she will be back in the parish hall with the postcards, and if you can help out, thank you. All right, now, Reverend Larry's sermon description this morning begins with a quote. What would the world be like if we let ourselves belong to our belongings? A quote from Reverend Karen Herring. So I looked her up on the internet, and I found her raising this question. What seed can I plant today that might in turn grow into the garden I long for, yielding a harvest that might feed my hunger for a different world? Now, many of you heard me reflect on my experiences with the Green Circle program, involving many here at First Unitarian back in the 1970s, the 80s, and even into the 90s. It was First Unitarian that seized the initiative when it came to Delaware, and as the Green Circle coordinator, I can speak with authority how First U members were the primary sources of innovation in its content and the training and support of its volunteers that began to grow in the 1970s. We started with a very simple flannel board story with expanding circles as your world grew, starting with a single figure, you, in that small circle when you were born, and growing the circle to include your family, your community, and finally the world. But then we added the dimension of involving the children and exploring real situations where they were included and excluded from someone's circle of caring, building a powerful sense of empathy. We followed up offering children examples of differences that are sometimes used to keep people out of the circle of caring, inviting them to consider real situations in their lives. And with Newcastle County heading for desegregation in the 1970s, many school and community leaders recognized the value this experience could have with children about to be thrown into encountering some differences, perhaps for the first time. When I read Reverend Herring's words, what seed can I plant today that might in turn grow to a garden I long for, yielding a harvest that might feed my hunger for a different world, I thought of how all of us doing Green Circle were indeed very clear about the seeds we were planting and very clear about the passion for a future of a different world where we were respecting one another. Sorry. Fast forward now to this month when our Soul Matters groups are focusing on belonging. The introductory material ended with these words that about took my breath away. They read, "We only grow when the circle does. Circles that keep others out also keep the air out. No one inside a closed circle truly sings. They only suffocate slowly." It's all one big reminder that the true blessing of belonging is not that you get to come inside the circle. It's that you get to participate in expanding it. Again, as the circle grows, so do we. Now, I would have loved to have had those profound words to add to the ongoing professional development we use to do with our Green Circle volunteers, but it's one more thoughtful piece to add to this very rich set of concepts. And one more piece of sage wisdom to listen to and embrace at this stage in my life. Let us now prepare our hearts and minds for worship.
Good morning. I'm the Reverend Larry Piers, minister here at First Unitarian Church of Wilmington. So glad that whether you're joining us online or in this building this morning, that you are part of the circle that we are creating together. As I look in this room this morning, I see some people that I have not yet met. And so following this service, I want to meet you in the parish hall right at the back of the sanctuary, because I cannot have you slip away. Can you agree to do that? Just say yes silently to yourself. Okay, thank you. I get something to look forward to. Our call to worship this morning is about the kind of space that we create within the circles that we create. So important to recognize that we get to create the atmosphere and the ambiance of what it is that we do when we gather. These particular words are written by Beth Strano, entitled "The Brave Space Invitation." Together, we will create brave space, because there is no such thing as safe space. We exist in the real world. We all carry scars, and we have all caused wounds. In this space, we seek to turn down the volume of the outside world. We amplify the voices that fight to be heard elsewhere. We call each other to more truth and more love. We have the right to start somewhere and to continue to grow. We have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. We will not be perfect. This space will not be perfect. It will not always be what we wish it to be. But but it will be our brave space together. And we will work on it side by side. So as we gather for worship this morning, let's invite one another into this brave space that we create together. So may it be.
We invite those of you here at home who have a chalice to light it now as Reverend Larry lights ours here in the sanctuary. This chalice lighting for belonging is by Reverend Dr. Julia Corbett Heemeyer, who is the UU minister in Muncie, Indiana. This morning we'll be saying our chalice lighting responsively. I will begin, and you will respond with your part on the screen. We light this flame, the bright warmth of belonging, of companionship, of interdependence.
We light this flame to remind us that we belong to the earth, our sacred home.
We light this flame to remind us we belong to human families, biological or chosen, and to the entire human family.
We light this flame to celebrate this community here gathered, to which we belong, which claims our loyalty and affection.
We light this flame to call to mind the transcendent, the holy, known by many names and by none, to which we also belong, which holds and sustains us.
We light this flame in affirmation of the responsibility we share to make our communities ones where all belong.
Please join us now in singing hymn number 1059, May Your Life Be as a Song, that Kathy is going to introduce.
Good morning. So I'm going to teach this hymn to you because I understand that quite a few may not know this. So I'm going to teach it to you line by line. I will sing a line, and the choir will join you in repeating each line, and then I'll give you instructions of how we will sing the hymn together. So here we go. May your life be as a song. May your life be as a song. Resounding with the dawn to sing awake the light. Resounding with the dawn to sing awake the light. And softly serenade the stars. And softly serenade the stars. Ever dancing circles in the night. Ever dancing circles in the night. Great, you sound like you do know it, so if you didn't, now you do. What we're going to do is go through it 3 times together now, and the choir is going to sing with you on the first verse, and then the last 2 verses they're going to sing around with you. So don't follow them, I'll be singing with you all the way through. I know we're getting fancy. Okay, here we go. May your life be as a song, resounding with the dawn, to sing with the light, and softly serenade the stars, ever dancing circles in the night. May your life be as
Please join me in affirming our mission. First Unitarian Church of Wilmington is a beloved community that nourishes minds and spirits, fights injustice, and transforms the world through loving action.
Let us join together in time of prayerful meditation. This morning, in this circle of care and concern and compassion, may we attend to our own longings for this world that we care about, this world that we share, this world where suffering, unnecessary suffering, is occurring and impacts all of us, no matter how close or far we might be from that pain. I'm thinking particularly of people of Ukraine and the latest attempt to interfere with their own capacity for having agency at determining and discerning their own destiny and their own longing for a lasting peace. I'm thinking about those in Russia who have been increasingly risking arrest as they express their longing for peace and sanity. I'm thinking of those in Iran, especially Iranian women who are raising their voices in protest around the suspicious death of Masha Amini. May their longing for freedom, may our longing for freedom, may the longing for peace and our longing for peace be realized as we raise our voices in protest, as we take a stand and we join hands in a wider, growing, larger circle of concern because we are deeply connected to one another. One another's pain is our pain as well. Amidst all of these longings within this world that we share, or also our own longings for our own self, our care for ourselves and how we are in the world. So let's think about our own longings, our own way of being, and ask ourselves, what wants to shift? What wants to change? What little shift or what little change could make the most difference, the most impact in all the places where our lives intersect with others? In closing, I will share these words by the cultural anthropologist Angeles Arian. When did you stop dancing? When did you stop singing? When did you stop being enchanted by stories? When did you stop being comforted by the sweet territory of silence? Let us enter that territory of silence now as we move into this shared silence that follows. Each week we gather, we take a moment to attend to the concerns of our own heart. Each week when we gather, we risk saying out loud or writing in the chat some of what it is that we are holding, so we do never need to hold it alone. So I ask you to take a moment, maybe even with your hand on your heart if you want to, and ask yourself, what concern am I holding here? Concern for yourself, concern for someone you love or care about, or concern about this world that we are in. And if you so choose, you may speak the names or that concern into this room. Or write them in the chat. And in case this hasn't been said, I know many of us are holding a care and a concern for Kathy Thomas, who had a some health struggles this weekend. May all whose names were spoken and those unspoken find peace and healing this day.
We are Unitarian Universalists. We are people of many paths who are brave, curious, and compassionate thinkers and doers. Every day, people are inundated with information, overwhelmed by demands, and pulled by a culture that seeks to divide us from the web of life. Unitarian Universalism reconnects, bringing people together with meaning and inspiration. We are a house without walls, a congregation without spiritual limits, and a movement that calls you to put more faith in yourself, your community, and your beliefs. We are a faith that honors your mind, your heart, your journey. Simply put, we are a guided path towards a better you and a better world. Grounded in hundreds of years of thoughtful, religious communities. We are people of many generations, ethnicities, genders and sexualities, and spiritual backgrounds. People engaged in making the world a better place. People focusing on what really matters: love, justice, integrity, and hope. Unitarian Universalists have different beliefs, but shared values. We are Unitarian Universalists, and at the same time, we may also be agnostic, Buddhist, Christian, Hindu, humanist, Jewish, Muslim, pagan, atheist, believers in God, and those who let the great mystery be. The diversity of beliefs you'll find in a Unitarian Universalist community is one of our strengths. We're always learning how to see the world from a different perspective. What unites us are our core principles that uphold 7 real-world values: believing in the worthiness of every person, showing compassion and fairness, accepting others for who they are, growing through a personal search for truth, leading with democratic spirit, working for justice, and understanding that everything is interconnected. 7 days a week, Unitarian Universalists live these principles by doing. When we gather, we worship, reflect, and remind ourselves what matters most in life. Whatever our age, we learn to live with more wisdom, more awareness, more gratitude, and more soul. We show our values by showing up to answer the call for social justice. We have a track record of siding with love for civil rights, LGBTQ equality, immigration reform, environmental sustainability, reproductive justice, racial justice, and more. Find what it means to live your deepest values out loud. Join us on this extraordinary adventure of faith.
I've very rarely used a video instead of a reading within a worship service. Yet there was something about this particular video, We Are Unitarian Universalist, that communicates both in its graphics and its message, I believe, some important insights about what it could mean to belong to this particular faith community that we call First Unitarian Church of Wilmington and Unitarian Universalism. Now, we like to joke about ourselves as Unitarian Universalists, like the time a visitor to a Unitarian Universalist church sat through a sermon with growing incredulity at the heretical ideas that were being spouted. And after the sermon, a UU member of the church asked the visitor, "So how did you like it?" And the visitor replied, "I can't believe half the things the minister said," sputtered the visitor in outrage. "Oh, good," said the UU. "Then you'll fit right in." I appreciate the ways that we joke about ourselves, holding ourselves lightly, sometimes more lightly than others, as long as it doesn't mean, particularly in these times that we are in, that we don't take ourselves and the impact that we could have seriously. We need to take ourselves seriously at this moment. In the film, first there is that ever-flowing line across the screen in the video. That single moving line that conveys the connections that we have with one another, though we may each be holding different beliefs, though we may be each unfolding from different experiences, though we may orient our meaning-making by any one of what we call the sources of our living tradition. The flowing line traces our history, emerging from and still informed by our Jewish and Christian roots, even as we've stretched ourselves within and beyond those roots, as we claim a heritage from the world's religious traditions, science and arts, and transcendent experiences of wonder as well. That line can represent the connection that we feel to our guiding principles and our endeavor to live out those principles with one another and in the varied contexts of our lives. Since, as you know, the root of the word religion from the Latin means to tie or bind together. That flowing line across the screen can also represent what ties us together as a community. Our religious heritages, our guiding principles, our sources, our connection to one another in this community and with other Unitarian Universalists across the globe, in the Philippines, in Poland, in Germany, in Transylvania, in India, and on and on. The line for me also represents our personal and our collective longings. Our sometimes unstated but real longing is to be whole, to be true, to find personal meaning, and to make a real difference in the world. That line proceeds forward, almost dancing across the screen, curving and changing and weaving with other lines. Although we might be tempted to do so, if we are true to our life's complexity and if we're devoted to a dynamic faith, our Unitarian Universalist faith is more than a static timeline, more than a simple storyline could ever convey. In fact, I believe that if we are living a vital life and part of a vital faith, that we never feel like we have arrived. Which reminds me of another you joke. Visitors on a tour of heaven noticed a group of Unitarian Universalists who were arguing about whether or not they were really there. Yet, I truly believe that our vitality resides in our capacities to attend to our yearnings, to listen to our longings, to ask of ourselves again and again, what more? What's next? Let's hear those phrases resound in this room at the count of 3, okay? What more? What next? One more time. Great. So we need to ask those questions of ourselves, of our congregation, and of our world. To be able to hear the longings within us, to be able to hear the longings among us, I believe keeps us a vital, responsible, and resplendent faith community. My colleague, the Unitarian Universalist minister, Reverend Karen Herring, points out in her article, Belonging to Our Longings, this. Our understanding of longings has so often been linear, she writes, whether we think of longing as a nostalgia for the past or a steady march of progress towards the future. It can be tempting to think of it in a straight line, stretching out in one direction or the other from where we are now. She continues, but longing is more curvaceous and dimensional than this. This is abundantly clear in the natural world, where time does not march but bends around the cycle of seasons, where life itself circles back dust to dust, whether to the earth or of the stars. Not without its own movement or improvement, nature has its own emergent progress that unfolds over time. Each bold new blossom eventually bows back to the ground as seed and rises again as sprout in the spring. Cycles like these create memory and expectation that dance across time, creating an embodied sense of longing in which we each participate as sons and daughters of life longing for itself, as Kahlil Gibran has said. So, in my opinion, when we attend to and allow our own longings to have voice and expression, we can become more conscious participants in our own ongoing personal and spiritual development. And indeed, we can also attune to what wants to unfold in this world through us, so that we truly can be the sons and the daughters of life longing for itself. So that flowing, curvaceous, ever-unfolding line on the screen that we viewed, for me, represents our deeper participation in this unfolding dance of our religion, a dance that we can join that has already begun. Karen Herring asked us to ponder, what would the world be like if we let ourselves belong to our longings? Let's let that question land a little bit as I read it one more time. What would our life be like? What would the world be like if we let ourselves belong to our longings? Did you think of something? Did something come up for you with that question? My hope is that if we allow ourselves to attend to our own longings, that we can keep our own faith vital and also find common ground with one another, even when we might use different words or hold different beliefs or change our beliefs over time. Sometimes we change our beliefs under pressure. Reminds me of another joke. So this confirmed, devout atheist was walking in the woods and reflecting on the randomness of this universe that he was appreciating, the trees and the sky and the birds and the streams. And all of a sudden, this great black grizzly bear arose through the woods. And he saw that, and he scooted out as fast as he could. But the bear chased him and followed him until finally the man fell on the ground and looked up at this big bear right over him and said, "Oh my God, help me." And then there was a silence, and a voice came from the sky and said, "So now you're calling upon me. After all of these years of denying my existence." But this gracious God said, "How can I help you?" And the man said, "Could you make this bear a Christian?" So at that moment, the big black grizzly bear lowered his hands and joined them in prayer and said, "Thank you, God, for this meal which you have prepared for me this day." Now, this video that we showed as well is entitled, "We Are Unitarian Universalists." The accent is on we. While it acknowledges that each of us could tell our own individual story, that individual story video would be entitled, "I Am a Unitarian Universalist." And in that video, the main star of the show would be you, yourself, and I, right? But though we often do put the accent on I, the story about who we are as Unitarian Universalists will often be more broader than the story that we would tell about our own individual selves. For we, as Unitarian Universalists, hold many different beliefs, use many different words to express our beliefs, and draw upon a wide range of what we call the sources of our living tradition. In the story of who we are, we encounter much more diversity, divergence, and difference. Some criticize the diversity of our beliefs by accusing us of trying to create the impression that, well, just about anyone can be a Unitarian Universalist, even you. Yet, actually, it is more challenging to be part of a group that encompasses so much difference in our midst. In the film, the individual lines merge with the lines of various colors to knit into our religious history, our community of diverse beliefs and life experience, and our various expressions of our faith. To declare with one of our historical forebears, the Transylvanian Unitarian Francis David, that you do not have to think alike to love alike. In the context and the times in which we live, this time of rising authoritarianism in our own country and other places around the globe, is not to provide just a warm embrace to one another. It's a subversive idea. You do not have to think alike to love alike. Who we are as Unitarian Universalists includes, obviously, our individual stories and proclivities, but it is more than that as well. We sometimes forget that we have different stories to tell, even in this room. For some of us, the story is some version of the coming out story. I was raised in this particular tradition, or I used to belong to this tradition, but over time I found that I could not say or sing the words or what is more pretend I believed in those particular sacred stories. So I drifted, or I ran, or I swam away from that, and I wandered in, or I washed upon the shores of a Unitarian Universalist congregation. And so surprise, 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 here I am. We've heard that story, haven't we? Yes? Yeah. So I don't mean actually to make light of it. For some, this journey towards Unitarian Universalism was a hard-fought and even a painful one, including being disowned by others in one's family or one's former religion. This story is one of finding a home among Unitarian Universalists that might be more of like a story of finding refuge. And sometimes our congregations can feel like refugee camps for religious refugees. There is something comforting about finding a place where you can belong without compromising your integrity, your intellect, or your imagination. Once we have found needed refuge, our congregations can at their best be a greenhouse for continuing clarifying one's own perspectives, finding new meanings for old words, encountering support, and hopefully challenging us as we grow our souls throughout our lifetime. Having received refuge, we often offer refuge to others to find their own path. This was expressed so clearly by the Universalist Edwin Markham in his verses from the poem Unwitted. I've adapted it a little bit. They drew a circle that shut me out. Heretic, rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had the wit to win. We drew a circle that took them in. There is another story that we as Unitarian Universalists can tell of ourselves that's different than this coming out or religious refugee story. An increasing number of people in our country today were not raised in a religion. Rather than trying to get over a religion or relinquish a religion that no longer serves them, they may be looking for something that's explicitly spiritual, that connects them to something that they can't necessarily find on CBS Sunday morning or This Week or Meet the Press. Maybe something that they can't even find in a coffee shop. Some of us may need to develop a new sensitivity that not everyone in today's world grew up with a religious past that they are now disowning. We need to manage our expectations of one another and recognize and appreciate those differing stories in our midst. Increasing number of people today, as I said, were not raised in the religion. Their journey to and within Unitarian Universalism may be one of actually seeking something that might be more explicitly spiritual, that might introduce them to religious traditions and perspectives rather than merely disowning what they never had. These people among us might be honestly seeking ways of understanding the perennial wisdom across religious traditions. These people among us might not be carrying the same baggage that come-outers are around that might have around religious language. They may find words that speak to their own longings for meaning and connection to something more in life. Without the prior baggage, words like grace or God or divine or sacred or worship might actually allow these people among us, express what before they had no words for. There's a third group among us. Interested? Curious? These are those who rather than subtracting a particular tradition or religious perspective in order to become Unitarian Universalists, find that they're adding one to it. In an increasingly multi-faith world, we are providing a home for those who might explicitly draw inspiration and meaning from Christianity, Buddhism, earth-centered traditions, humanism, atheism, Islam, and Unitarian Universalism. They add a particular Unitarian Universalist flavor that might be considered more liberal, more progressive, more humanistic, more justice-oriented, or more pluralistic. They might have like a hyphen in their identity. Fourth, of course, there were those who were raised Unitarian Universalists. Any of those in this room? Just so I can get a sense. Yeah, okay. They have a different story to tell than those who found Unitarian Universalism later in life. And indeed, they may have gone through a time of disowning or re-owning or reclaiming the Unitarian Universalism of their upbringing for whatever reasons, but they want to belong or belong again. In all of these cases, those who are coming out of a tradition towards Unitarian Universalism, those who are coming into Unitarian Universalism without a prior religious background, those adding a hyphen to their Unitarian Universalism by drawing upon other religious traditions as well, and those raised Unitarian Universalists. All of these are finding a way to belong to their longings for something more, something meaningful, something that connects with the unfolding of their life. They are part of that ever-widening circle that we call Unitarian Universalism, which makes some of our generalities about ourselves and some of our jokes about ourselves, although entertaining, not necessarily reflective of contemporary Unitarian Universalists. Peter Block, the community organizer, organizational consultant, in his wonderful book, Community, the Structure of Belonging, adds to our appreciation of what it means to belong by offering a few insights. He writes, belonging can also be thought of as a longing to be. Being is our capacity to find our deeper purpose in all that we do. It is the capacity to be present and to discover our authenticity and our whole selves. This is often thought of as an individual capacity, but it's also a community capacity to be present and to discover our authenticity and whole selves. This is often thought of as an individual capacity, but he declares that it is a community capacity, for community is the container within which our longing is often fulfilled. So, as a community, I want to invite us to participate in a practice this week. I want you to ask yourself, what are my longings? what are my longings? And if you dare, I want to invite you to ask another person, what are your longings? And maybe in that kind of reflection or interaction, we might discover some common ground. We might be able to enter a terrain with one another where we can join our hearts and imaginations, our beliefs and our passions as we move forward. So, in this world that continues to draw so many exclusive circles that shut people out, can we endeavor to model what it means, even in the smallest and sincerest way, to draw a circle that takes others in? This week, may our practice be that of drawing ever wider circles, ever flowing lines and circles, rather than dividing lines. May, in the words of George Light, we do this. Draw the circle wide, draw it wider still. Let this be our song. No one stands alone. Standing side by side, draw the circle wide.
I'd like to begin this stewardship moment with a few more thoughts related to this month's Soul Matters topic of belonging. I've told the story several times from this pulpit about attending a memorial service here in the sanctuary some 56 years ago now, how we could just feel it that day, that we knew we had found our spiritual home, a place where we belonged. And over the years, we became deeply involved in our church and our denomination. For us, Unitarian Universalism evolved during this time, shifting from being more focused on humanism to being more spiritual. We raised our 2 children here who embraced all they could learn and experience, and also felt that deep sense of belonging here. I have to say, we feel truly blessed as we watch our daughter today find such meaning in all the ways she is involved in the Princeton, New Jersey UU congregation. From all of her youth group work, her pastoral care contributions, and for now being president of their board of trustees. Then there's our son, who remembered the value of our About Your Sexuality program that he went through, and has seen to it that our grandchildren experience the same religious education and current OWL programming in the Fairfax, Virginia UU congregation. We are blessed as we see and hear our grandchildren express our faith and articulate their beliefs and values, obviously feeling a sense of belonging to their church community. We're so grateful to our church and the legacy First Unitarian helped to shape for the Foss family. How has this church made a difference in your family's life? It's something for each of you to think about in your own way. Now, this time in our service when we ask for your financial support for the work of our church, to keep our programs running, the staff supported, the lights on, and the air conditioning on. See the 4 ways you can contribute to the side of your screen, If you're in the sanctuary, you can place a check or cash in the back box at the back. You can mail a check to the Halsted Street address. You can log into the church website, onto the church website, and make your way to the donate page. Or you can use the Vanco mobile faith engagement app and follow the prompts. We will be grateful for whatever you are able to contribute. Please join me now in dedicating our offering to the work of this congregation, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action. We dedicate our lives and these our offerings. If you have lit a chalice at home, I invite you now to extinguish it as we extinguish ours in the sanctuary with these words from Irish poet and former priest John O'Donoghue. May the frames of your belonging be large enough for the dreams of your soul. May you know the eternal longing which lives at the heart of time. May you allow the wild beauty of the invisible world to gather you, mind you, and embrace you in belonging. May it be so. Please join us now in singing hymn number 311, Let It Be a Dance.
Let a dancing song we heard.
Gonna keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Repeat that after me. Never turning back. Repeat that. Gonna keep on moving proudly. Gonna keep on singing loudly. Gonna keep on loving boldly. Never turning back.